After a rough week, without getting very much quality sleep, I thought today I would just touch on just how important it is. That is, why do we need sleep? As in, what is the actual function of sleep, and do we really need to sleep 1/3 of our life away? Well, to start with, sleep is not just our brain, turning off and having a rest. Basically, each night when we sleep, our bodies need to recover, rejuvenate, and refresh, ready for the next day, so we can do it all again. And this happens in a phase of sleep called slow wave sleep. During this phase, our organs and body tissues are repaired, the day-to-day wear and tear. Our immune systems are refreshed, etc. But there is also another very important phase to our sleep, and that is dream sleep, or what's often known as REM, rapid eye movement. This is when we dream. But what is dreaming exactly? Dreaming is actually our stress relief valve, believe it or not. That is, it's nature's way of dealing with the emotionally aroused expectations from earlier in the day. But what do I mean by that? Well, let me explain. A lot of my therapy solutions and interventions are based on the Human Givens approach, which a lot of you have heard me going on about emotional health, emotional needs. And that's an approach that was developed by Joe Griffin and Ivan Terrell. And Joe has researched sleep and dreaming extensively. And one of the main discoveries has been this. Basically, to paraphrase, the role of dreaming is, I'm just reading this from one of his books, the role of dreaming is to deactivate the emotional expectations that we get worked up about during the day, and which are still taking up space in our brain when we fall asleep. That's from a book called Dreaming Reality. He discovered that what needs discharging are not the arousals that were expressed during the day, which you would think is the case, perhaps by having, a heated argument with our partner or taking evasive action in a near hit and miss accident. It is the arousals that actually aren't expressed or acted out that produce the dreams. These arousals stew away at us below consciousness, waiting to be dealt with. And basically, if they are still there when we fall asleep, the arousal pattern is completed by being acted out metaphorically in our dreams. This then frees up our brains to face the next day's emotional concerns. In other words, we dream out the emotionally arousing expectations, which unconsciously our emotional brain was still expecting to have happen. That's another explanation, again, from Joe in a book called How to Master Anxiety. So what Joe had worked out was that once a primitive urge is aroused, for example, survival urges or instincts such as desire to eat, have sex, run away or stay and fight, then it needs to be discharged in some way or another. This is so that those instincts remain intact, for if we were to continue to ignore them, then they would cease to function correctly. So nature's way of keeping those instincts intact is to provide a mechanism in dreaming, allowing us to act out those expectations that were not fulfilled while we were awake. And this is where REM sleep comes in. So when we are in REM, all of our senses are shut down. This allows the brain to get to work acting out those expectations, which it does using metaphors and pattern matching to other experiences. And when all is well in our lives, this works perfectly. However, when we are anxious, depressed, or even just constantly worrying, then things start going wrong. So remember earlier when I mentioned the recuperation that happens in slow wave sleep, and necessary for our bodies to be able to recover and repair each night. Well, when we spend all day worrying or in a heightened state of alert, fight or flight response or state, then that results in far too much work for our REM phase to fix come sleep time. So this results, instead of us going in cycles of the different phases, this results in us having too much REM phase and not enough or no slow wave phase. And right there is the reason anxious, depressed people wake up exhausted and lacking motivation. Well, obviously there's a lot more to it, but in simple terms, that's the crux of it. So sleep and dream time is essential then to our emotional well-being. When it is out of whack, everything else suffers. And when the rest of our life is out of whack, our sleep and REM suffers. So what am I getting at here is basically it all goes hand in hand. We need to live well, eat well, exercise and get our emotional needs met so as to sleep and dream well. Because this in turn ensures that we can get up again tomorrow and do it all again. So where do we start? Well, if you're part of my program, you already have the tools now to intervene. And if you're not, for most anxious people, that begins with regaining calm so that you can think rationally, first of all, about the missing needs and strategize how you will move forward. But only you know where you are at and where you need to start. So for some of us, it will be focusing on being mindful. For others, it'll be a priority to get more active. But as far as sleep goes, though, both of those help. And as you progress, either through the program or on your own, by following my other videos, for example, when you start adding nutritious food, the daily exercise, mindfulness, and then at the same time subtracting those bad habits, toxic people and environments that aren't serving you well, you will quickly find your sleep and everything else improving. So there you go, a short, brief summary of the importance of sleep. If you want to know more, just PM me, obviously. And if you do need to regain calm, get in touch for the anxiety special regain calm sessions that I do. Cheers guys, till the next time.